be part of us. The hashtag is Morning at NTV. Now, the Uganda's you actually report 2017 cover has been reduced from 24% for the forest cover in water and pretty much matters to do with the forest cover, and we are talking about how this has an effect on our climatic conditions. And so you can imagine that forest cover diminishing from 24% in 1990, hear this, to 11% in 2015, and currently we're talking about a forest cover of 9%, Rita.
Now, when we take a look at what you're saying, Mala, the increased charcoal production and excessive harvesting of the non-timber wood products are among the drivers of the declining forest cover within our country. Now, it's predicted by the UNDP that none of the sustainable development goals can be met without major movements in the quality and quantity of energy services in developing countries. Now, they also warn that Uganda will not have any forest cover by 2055 if action is not taken today. And action is now being taken. The Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, together with the Uganda National Alliance for Clean Cooking, have come together to have a strategy ensure that safe and sustainable development and production of charcoal, while at the same time providing safer and cleaner alternatives.
Right, and to have that conversation in studios, we are joined by Mr. Alfred Kusima. He is the National Coordinator, Uganda National Alliance on Clean Cooking. You're welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Next to him, we are joined by Mr. Wilson Wafula. He is the Commissioner, Renewable Energy Department from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I think we can start from that point whereby you are saying that you've come up together to, find ways on how we can ensure safe and sustainable production of charcoal. Many will ask, what could this be? And yet we have been having conversations to discourage charcoal production entirely. We can start with you, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I think, as you have clearly stated, that charcoal, we cannot just come up and stop it. Charcoal will continue being here because it's the main source of energy for the most people. So you find that most families in Uganda use charcoal, and through the woods getting away. So how to ensure sustainable trees is that we need to do massive tree planting.
So when you say massive tree planting, we're saying you can use the charcoal, but every time you do you plant a tree? What happens there? How does that work?
Yeah, because you'll find that most trees, as you really noted, come from the private land, the people. And also these trees are being cleared for other purposes, as you talked about development. As the population is growing, we also have agriculture, the gardens are growing. The gardens, the towns are growing, and also the private people have been thinking that the trees just grow on their own. So we have reached a point where I think everybody should start planting trees, mainly for charcoal.
Okay. Just to bring Mr. Kusima into this conversation, coming in from the Alliance for Clean Cooking, on clean cooking, can we have clean cooking with charcoal?
We believe that, like the Commissioner has mentioned, it may not be something that probably we're going to solve in a daylight, but we believe with alternatives complementing or probably coming in more on the sustainable use of the charcoal, I think we are on course.
So when you talk of sustainable production of charcoal, what does it really entail? Just break it down for us.
Sustainable, we're looking at probably the means and how the production or probably the entire chain around the charcoal production and use is done. In this case, if you're going to produce, are you producing particularly for fuel? And if you do, how are you going to do it without or probably having a consideration that tomorrow you also need more, because like the Commissioner has mentioned, it may not get off today or tomorrow, but it's a process that probably people need to understand that one, use alternatives. Worst case scenario, people plant woodlots, have specific species of trees that can be planted to ensure that production is done, but in a more sustainable manner. Yeah.
All right. When we focus on Kampala at this point in time, a number of people who are renting, and perhaps most of their spaces are not green in any way. It's more of concrete paved kind of situations, but they're the biggest consumers of charcoal.
I agree with you.
How do we bring these people on board to make sure we have the sustainable and safe production of charcoal? Because for them, all they do is go and buy, bring home. Yes.
With that, we've already started on some interventions, among which is creating awareness about what exactly this means, because it's one thing being on the receiving end in Kampala, and it's another being on ground and seeing where this is really where the charcoal is coming from, because the tree cutting and the degradation is more up country. Us in Kampala, we may not really have a lot of charcoal production in Kampala, so sensitization is one of the key issues. Complementing on sources of the charcoal, like Commissioner said, planting of the trees, but sustainably, and then areas around making alternatives affordable. And of course, with that, we're trying to pursue with ministry, or in that case, government, to see to it that probably the alternatives are cheaper. Like we're seeing in the case of Kenya, for example, they have made their gas cheaper, and at least with the charcoal ban they're enforcing, they have a fallback position. So, among other strategies, I think those would really be key areas to take on.
Mr. Wilson, this particular sector actually is very significant to the economy, because it contributes pretty much about $48 US, and we're talking about 48 million to from 26.8 million to 48 million USD in the GDP. All right, and so it's very significant, and you're also looking at 20,000 jobs plus in this particular sector. And you rightfully said that we cannot just kill this sector. We need to ensure that, you know what, it's controlled well enough. But in terms of ensuring that as much as we have the charcoal producers cutting down trees for them to produce this charcoal, then they're able to plant. What is the ministry doing to ensure that they're well sensitized and they know that this is for our benefit, that if I cut one tree down, I have to see to it that, you know what, I plant maybe 2 or maybe 10 to replace that one. So what is the ministry doing to ensure that this particular change of mindset and the provision of, you know, the trees that are going to be planted thereof are actually available for these farmers?
Okay, what the ministry has done, we have piloted the sustainable charcoal production in the Kato corridor, in the main district which are supplying Kampala. We have tried it in Mubende, Nakaseke, Kiriandongo, and Chiboga. And the finding is that this is a real very good sustainable business for livelihood. And through the pilot, we have distributed over 10 million seedlings. And in the place where we have distributed, I think there's too much tree. Now the strategy we have is that, one, we want to do a national campaign with all the stakeholders. Then two, we are thinking to work with local governments. You know, like when you look at biomass, it's not like a protected or a special reserve, which we are making a lot of money, a lot of people are surviving on it. We think to work with the districts, if possible, we put up some reserves. But also in Kampala, people with the plots, I think it is high time we find of doing boundary tree planting everywhere. Because if you go to developed countries like China, you'll find that even in the streets, it is all full of trees.
Correct.
So we have a lot of opportunity for tree planting on the highways. One time the project was launched, I think it did work well. It was not with the ministry, but with our government partners. So we think as a nation, everybody, even us here, we as we are here, we need to start planting trees in our homes. Not only fruits tree, but trees for wood.
Okay.
In addition to that, we also do efficiency, like using a tree in one day. You better use it in 5 days. So we'll talk more on energy efficiency. We are promoting the production, efficient production. proper transportation, packaging, and even use it at homes using efficient.
Okay. Now, Mbala mentions one thing, which is that there are jobs. There is availability of jobs when it comes to this industry, which is charcoal production, but also the alternatives, the safer alternatives besides charcoal. Give jobs.
Absolutely.
But we'd like to know what these options are, because for someone out there, all they have known is gas and charcoal. Haven't had anything else, and up to this day, they're still debating on whether to get the gas cylinder or not. So what are the options?
Thank you very much. There are a couple of options. To begin with, there are briquettes. Briquettes are one of alternatives that are really in use now. I've, of course, coming from representing the Alliance, I have a couple of member companies who are producing these briquettes, and we're doing the very best to ensure that at least they are at the various designations that people would easily access. Of course, access is also one other thing, because the way you access charcoal in 100 meters or 200 meters, the same way would wish the alternatives be available in the shortest radius as possible. So briquettes, that's one. There are improved cook stoves. Yeah. There are now some are going ethanol, but of course that's a new thing. But there are also LPG, and then people also are embracing biogas, because that's as well an area that has been more taken on, especially in the Katikati corridors. So for now, really, we are looking at those, and LPG, like you mentioned, and how I wish we would really see these be affordable, like any other Ugandan would wish to have these as their own use.
Yes, okay. Mr. Wilson.
Just to add on that one, also, like I want to emphasize biogas. When you look at what we have done in schools, that human waste can also give you energy. So we are thinking in the midst to strategize, if possible, we would abolish the septic tanks and we make the biogas, so that you use your own waste to cook at home. When you are coming here to work, you cook tea on your waste. And if you have animal, it's even be the best. Now in schools, we have about over 30 schools which are using it very well. We have King Solomon, Chengegwa, we have St. Barnabas in Kabare, we have St. Michael here in Wakiso, we have, and they're using it very, like in St. Barnabas, they have 1,000 students. All the drinking water is cooked on. So the alternatives are there. They might be slightly expensive, but in the long run, they're the cheapest.
When you talk of slightly expensive, what does it mean for me financially to install such a infrastructure in my place, such that I'm able to use the fecal matter that is generated from my home to provide energy for me?
Yeah, like if you compare, the cost of a septic tank is more expensive than a biogas.
How much are we looking at?
We are looking at around 2 million shillings.
Okay.
But people need to even start having animals. You'll find that biogas is very good at it encourages people to have a cow. Even if you have a small plot, you can have a cow at home. In these days, there's dry grass hay, which you buy and you feed the cow, and it gives you dung to use for cooking. So there is a lot of alternatives, and we are really doing campaign. But the problem, people need to start becoming productive. People need to start keeping cows. People need to start giving, even waste like the banana peels. You no longer need to throw them in, they just put them into the digester and they give you.
So you're saying that for me to get a septic tank, it's pretty much 2 million shillings, roughly. And for me to install this biogas kind of infrastructure, how much are we talking about?
2 million or less, because the good thing with the biogas, you don't put any metal there. It's purely standard brick. It's cheaper than a septic tank.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
But if we look at our country at this point in time, even just Kampala alone, we see that KCC has a hard time telling people to stay off the green areas. When it comes to our population and their mindset about the fact that we need to have a greener Uganda, from those that you have spoken to, where is their mentality? Because when we look at the statistic, I beg your pardon, that by 2055 we won't be able to have any forest cover within our country if we don't do something. Meaning either people are not taking the forests seriously, or we don't really care about it. So I'll start with you, Mr. Kusima, and come to you, Mr. Wilson.
Well, like you just said it right. It's not a new phenomenon. I mean, we see what's happening around us. But I think it's high time that really, as Ugandans and country at large, we started embracing this understanding that the danger is more than what exactly you can imagine. So it's about starting with I, as in me, you, as in everyone, to understand that this is it. But again, it falls back again to enforcement of some regulations on this. I can say, not that people are not aware, they're aware. And probably not that regulations are not being put, some have been put. But the thing is, have we tightened on the implementation, probably in the enforcement of the law? So I think with my brother, Commissioner, it's a thing that needs to be checked, which probably should be given a key priority.
Okay.
Mr.
For
Wilson.
me, my thing is that, depending on the masses are very good when you tell them what you want. But the strategy was different, because our strategy has been made on efficient use. Do you understand? We're not looking at the resource. But now for me, we are making a campaign. Even if you have bulk, too much, and you don't use it, at least it's a better than having little and keep using it. So we think, but for me, the experience we have had in the pilot areas, with the demand of trees is overwhelming. And also there are challenges with the trees like termites, drought coming in, and also other things. But all the same, when you keep doing, and the biggest advantage we have is the cost of investment in tree planting is very little. A seedling is 100. So everybody can afford a seedling to plant in Uganda. But the only thing, we need a message. We need everybody, the media, to come and support us in this.
No.
If NTV would be giving us at least, I'm just 1 minute every day asking people plant trees, just one word like that every day, I think we could have a very, very good impact.
Mr. Wafula, let's just have this conversation, and people have been asking, okay, fine, briquettes. Briquettes are amazing. You know briquettes, and you're telling us that your friends actually, are in that particular space. But the issue is people don't know that briquettes exist. And my question would be, the availability of this raw material is there. Why isn't the ministry, maybe partnering with the National Water and Sewerage Company to ensure that the sewage, this particular things, we call it things at that, quote unquote, they direct this to sewage treatment plants, that of course this waste is treated and dispensed off to the environment where it's less harmful. Why can't the ministry maybe partner with the corporation, National Water and Sewerage Corporation, to ensure that this waste, is readily available, maybe for the ministry to take on and, produce briquettes in masses, on a large scale, pretty much capacity, such that it's accessible to Ugandans, because the benefits of briquettes are amazing.
Thank you very much. I think you need to be an ambassador for energy. But what we have done is that now we have a project called Integrated Waste Management and Biogas. It was launched in March, and the implementation has started, and we are going to do integrated waste management, where we are going to generate biogas from all the municipal solid wastes. We are going to work in Kampala, Jinja, Bale, Masakamba on a small scale, then we shall scale up. So with that one, we are going to do it. But for me, still on briquettes, I am sure you are well informed, you know how briquettes, and you talked about the resource. Briquettes come from trees. Even if you are going to have so many briquettes, still we need to address the trees. So everything comes from trees. For me, briquettes, I have no problem with them. They are very good. They can be mixed with the whatever binders, and you do it. The current method, we are getting it from charcoal dust. They get charcoal dust on, so which still comes from trees. So for me, briquettes, charcoal, their factors affecting them are the same. So we need to address the resource from trees. So the only solution we have for biomass is trees. And I just want to assure you, chalk is still here for the next 50 years.
Wow.
We need to and the good thing is renewable. Renewable is that when you plant, it comes and you cut and use. There are very many good regenerative trees. When you cut, they grow.
Thank you very much you did mention about the partnership of Ministry with National Water and Sewage. Maybe that's just one bit of the various partnerships probably would look at. But my approach and thinking would be like we are having a national dialogue happening tomorrow on sustainable production of charcoal. We have already seen that partners like the Office of the President, is coming up. UNDP, Worldwide Fund for Nature, GIZ, Ministry of Energy and Development, Ministry of Water and Environment, and others to mention, Ministry of Local Government. It's a whole integral thing, as in every ministry, department, agency needs to start looking at this as the real priority of giving attention. Because if we don't, the other thing is saying, no, this is the mandate of probably so and so, this is the mandate of so and so. No, we need to start looking at it as a real problem if we are to take it on. And it's for the same reason that we see that tomorrow, tomorrow golf course, we do have this on a keynote, and it has to come out loud. We're seeing the whole Uganda is going to be in one house under one roof, discussing and finding solutions to why and how we should be tackling the current problem that we're having in the country, and that's the issue of sustainable production of charcoal. So I think,
many people say that, these conferences are there and people meet and they have the best stakeholders coming on board and we have powerful conversations, but it remains and, it's left back in that particular conference hall. So what chances do we have of, maybe the deliberations that are going to, come up tomorrow, that we're going to see some sense of implementation?
Interesting. I like the way you mentioned it, and we also kept asking ourselves, what's the uniqueness with this time around? I think it's coming from a background that much as others as well, people have done research and they come and present and all that, but this time around we're really looking at engaging the real persons on ground, and the category is segmented in a way that there are people who have implemented the pilot projects, like the minister has mentioned. There are those who are at enforcement, the RDCs, the MPs who are having members of parliament in the house, the district forest officers, the alternative solution providers, our members of UNAC, the Uganda National Alliance on Clean Cooking, to exhibit and show the world and Uganda that, look, this is it, it's happening, and these are the solutions. So my thinking, I'm very positive that I think tomorrow we're going to have a little bit uniqueness in what exactly we're going to do, and we shall walk out of that room with concrete solutions. If we have a member of parliament, we'll say if it's enforcement, if it's follow-up, it's monitoring, if supervision, if it's implementation, everyone has to leave this house when they're really clear-cut on what they're going to do next, and probably even have it well articulated on how this is going to be done. So I'm positive.
One thing that you mentioned is the real people on the ground being a part of that conversation. Where are the youth in it? Because at the end of the day, everything that's discussed, they will be the generation that carry it on. If they're not dealt with, if they're not being told these things, if they are clueless about what's happening, somehow we'll have it stopping somewhere. So where do we bring in the youth?
Interesting. I can report that among the people who are producing alternatives, actually a couple of them are youth. And we're talking about youth who have a mix or a blend of both female and young men. And for that reason, we believe that the going concern here is a key thing to look at. Like you're saying, the most productive category is the youth. And these are the many that we have out there who are probably even jobless or they lack anything to do. But it's high time now, as we continue with the campaign and seeing that we take this to another level, they started coming and realizing that green enterprises are there, and these can be a source of employment. These can provide the livelihood intervention foundation. So the youth are catered for, they are represented in all spheres, both legislative, implementation, and the solution providers. We are considering that very seriously.
Do we have the education sector in this one as well? Because what is being taught will eventually also come into it.
True. Like I said, the people on board is more integral. Actually, a couple, almost all MDAs, if I can mention, all MDAs. It's not leaving out anyone, and we are looking at an inclusive approach, so that if you say probably here the loose end was probably monitoring, say is a person supposed to take charge around, is he present, can you tell us what are the hiccups, how best can we address them, and probably how do we dive into that space together and see how we can come out with probably tangible results.
All right.
Yeah.
I think, yes, Mr. Wilson.
Just in addition of what the difference between these ones, that as you are aware, everybody has work he's doing which is not coming out. So even tomorrow, we shall be telling people what is happening, what we are going to do, so that people can come in. That's what I wanted to say. So the message is clear. What we are going to do, like I told you, we have a project on integrated waste biomass. We want to tell the people, and even the roles and specifications. So it's going to be more of allocation of tasks, and every people check, and they check up, and then people wake up and do back.
I'll probably just add on something, Commissioner. I think we are hosted here, and I ask myself a question, and it's something that I've been actually thinking about, though we may have to discuss. How is the media coming to play in this? Very, very key. Because you guys are always on TV, radio, and all the things, and you are the guys supposed to be helping to send out these messages. I may not really be so sure about the top management in regard to environment and the policy around that, but I think it's important that the media fraternity comes out equally loud. Because I imagine, I don't know how many TV stations we have in the country, how many radio stations we have in the country, how many journalists we have in the country, but it's, you realize this sometimes when someone is when they're writing the communication about energy space and energy, we're obsessed with oil and gas. Oil and gas lately has been a thing, but could we see some biomass in there? Can we see segments and probably more programs actually also articulating, just like we are now, maybe more frequent? You'd have really done the country proud.
All right. I think maybe you're not a fan of NTV because you do quite a bit of that.
We have been doing
quite a bit of
that.
that. Just the other time we were having an expose on illegal logging in the country and stuff like that. But we'll put you to task now as NTV and the producer, of course, with her permission. Maybe we can put you to task. Next time when we're having this conversation, we'd like to take it out of studio and teach people how they can go about getting into the briquettes, because it's a quick win. It's a quick win. When you're talking about briquettes, the production of briquettes, that's a quick win. It doesn't need a lot of initial capital, stuff like that. So we can put you to task, make sure that you organize for that, and we'll come and cover that. Pretty much the beginning to the end, the A to Z on how to produce briquettes.
I can't thank you enough.
And a number of times you just have to lure in people and say, this is an opportunity that you can make money from. Now more than ever, there's a possibility of you being a billionaire, not even a millionaire, but a billionaire if you take on these safe and cleaning options of cooking. Well, that has been our conversation this morning on our Kickstarter segment. As we are burning away our future, it turns out we may not have forest cover by 2055, but there's something that you can do, there's something that I can do, and each person on this table can do, which is a safe and sustainable charcoal production. That has been our conversation on Kickstarter this morning. We're joined by Mr. Alfred Kusima. He's the National Coordinator from the Uganda National Alliance on Clean Cooking. And also we're joined by the Commissioner, Renewable Energy Department, Mr. Wilson Wafula, and he is from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.